Yeah, so we wanted to make the film because not many people know about what socialism actually is. People have some ideas of what they think socialism might be. But pretty successfully since the Cold War, that's a word that's been defined by people on the right. And socialists themselves haven't always felt comfortable and safe to come out and talk about it. That's been changing in the last decade. And so we really wanted to make this film so that we could let socialists define socialism for themselves.
How difficult was it to put this project together, considering that you have a lot of historical footage? You included animation, which I loved, the sketches. They're very cool and very, if you want, you can learn a lot from them. I thought it was a great tool. Well, historical footage, animation, real people. So it took a while to produce this film, I think, and shoot it.
Yeah, the film has three elements that we use. We used a lot of archival images and historical footage. We did a lot of interviews and footage that we would shoot ourselves. And then we also had a lot of animation. I forget the total runtime, but longer than I think we anticipated. And the reason we wanted to use all these tools was these are complex ideas. There's a lot of information, and we wanted to try and simplify it and make it as easy and understandable for everyone. This film hasn't been made before. No one's done the 10-part series. Ken Burns never did, like 10-part American Socialism for PBS. So, it should have been done. We talked about doing that for this film. We didn't want to because we wanted it to come out sooner, but it meant we were trying to cover a huge amount of information and try and pack it into an 82-minute film and have it be fun and not feel hard to watch. So it was definitely challenging. The struggle was real.
It's funny how the corporations and if you want, the power structure in America has accomplished for people to relate the word capitalism with justice, democracy, and comfort. But for me, the word capitalist is a little scary because I grew up in a different country. So I'm not pro the former Soviet Union, but let's say Sweden or Norway, Spain is socialist, but it doesn't mean that they come and take your house away and your car. That's what people think that socialism is, that you cannot decide anything. And socialism, in a way, in a word, is bringing equality without interfering with your individualistic approach to life, right? So.
Yeah, well, the film, Professor Cornel West says, sure, we can look at countries that were socialist or communist failures, but also like all the capitalist countries have been failures too. Depending on what metrics you use for success. I look around where I live in Oakland. I see houselessness, mental illness all over the place. We're struggling for healthcare. The inequality gap is rising. People are straddled with student debt and frequently their entire lives. I wouldn't look around and say, oh, capitalism, that's what's really working. And yeah, people have this idea of socialism as though it is less control. But actually, what people say they want socialism, they mean they want more control. They want to be able to have more democracy, more ability to vote, not just for things like elected politicians, but also in their workplace, and to have more services that we would get through government services.
I totally agree. What's your background as a filmmaker? Yeah.
My background as a filmmaker, I've been doing this for some time. This is the first feature film that I've directed, but I have been producing for several years now. My last film was called Saving Capitalism. That was with Robert Reich, and we were looking at what he calls the rigging of our economic system, sort of as his experience in government as the labor secretary during the Clinton administration. And I don't know, I went to film school a few times.
Good.
Yeah.
So how did you choose the protagonist, the teacher, then the running, the potential electoral person, and all the characters that tell their story?
Yeah, well, I knew that I wanted to have, contemporary examples of people who were socialists, but not socialist organizers or activists or anything, just like normal people. And so Lee Carter was a elected official in Virginia. And that was I think he was elected in 2016 or 2017. It was really early. It was before AOC was in office. And he was just like the guy. So it was pretty great that he let us come and follow him around for his first year just to see what it was like. And he won in Virginia, he's a Marine vet, and he unseated the House Republican Majority Whip. So it was a pretty substantial. It was a really big.
I was so happy. I was very happy about that.
Yeah, it was exciting. And then we knew we wanted to do something with unions and labor organizing, and it wasn't entirely clear what that would be. And then the year we were filming, the primary filming was the year of the Red State Revolt. And so teachers went on strike all across the country in red states, because it's called the Red State Revolt because it was in states that are traditionally Republican. And so we were lucky to find Stephanie, and she let us come hang out with her. And she wasn't a socialist. She was just a teacher who was pretty fed up, had filed for bankruptcy. She was like, this is ridiculous. I have a master's degree. I teach all the time. I can't pay the bills. I'm a single mom. Like, this is hard. And then through the strike and through all the organizing around that, did ultimately become a socialist and a socialist organizer. So, yeah.
What I liked about the film is that you explore the past with wonderful examples and very, very well documented. And also, but you bring the whole past to today through these characters. So I guess that was a tool that you used to make us feel connected, maybe, right? Because you didn't want it to be like a historical thing. We have nothing to do. This is not the Roman Empire story. It's like something that is, we're here, not right?
Yeah, I think, the history of socialism in the United States is something that's not familiar to most people. Certainly was not familiar to me when I started the project. It was all new. And so, it felt like an important piece of the story, but we didn't want it to just be a historical film. We also wanted to include characters, but to have the characters without understanding, the historical precedent for how things got, so bad and how they were now coming to these ideas, it would have been without structure. And, I think that's a problem that a lot of documentaries have in general, is they talk about a specific issue without talking about the systems and the structures. You're sort of missing like a pretty key element. I think there are lots of films, about struggling public school teachers, for example, and we go, oh, they can't make it. And we see them and they go home and their lives they love teaching, but it's really hard. But if you don't understand, why public schools aren't funded, if you don't understand, the role of charter schools or the privatization industry, you're going to leave that film not really knowing what to do next. And that was something we really wanted to get ahead of with this film.
I love the fact that you let us know the importance of immigrants at the end of the 19th century in terms of organizing. Nowadays, there's a social movement here by the right that increases that they want us to hate immigrants, but I go the opposite way. So I think that was good immigrants always bring great stuff. I think that's what I believe. I'm an immigrant too. I feel cool.
I mean, we're all immigrants. It sort of is arbitrary at what point you want to decide when someone, when that border is. So, yeah.
It's good. So tell us about the release of the film and how did the pandemic affected the shoot, or what happened with
Yeah, well, we were mostly done filming and editing, and we were set to premiere at Hot Docs in 2 years ago, almost, and then or a year and a half ago. Anyway, we were set to premiere, and then everything got canceled because of COVID. So we were like, okay, silver lining, we can include a little bit of COVID and a little more Medicare for all in the film, which is really important to the subject. So we went back into the edit, we put it back in, and then the past year we've just been doing virtual festivals. And then just this past weekend, we were able to premiere theatrically. We're doing a mixture of in-person and virtual screenings, and you can watch it from home. Just rent it on iTunes or whatever. You go to socialismmovie.com. You can find the link to watch from your couch, or the different cities where we're playing in person, if that feels safe to you.
So, Yael, how would you define socialism?
Well, many different people define socialism differently. And so I think socialism is really more of a spectrum of democracy. And so when you have more democracy, you have more socialism. When you have less democracy, you have less socialism. And so we can look at it like that as a metric. So I don't think it is a thing that you have and you, we live under socialism and it's X, Y, and Z. All these systems are mixtures, and sort of saying, I think, oh, well, Scandinavia, all those countries, those are socialist countries. They're a capitalist country. It's obviously a mixture, but they have more socialism than we do. And they have more democracy than we do. They have more unions. They have more ability to have worker-owned co-ops. Those are things that are much harder to have in this country. And when you have those things, you're able to live a more fulfilling, richer life. If we had universal daycare, I can tell you this film would have been a lot easier to make. It would have been done a lot sooner because I had a baby while we were making it. And it was really, really hard. So yeah, I hope that answers.
Yeah.
A little bit.
For me, socialism is it's a social structure or a system in which, we all decide on a more democratic way, what do we want to do? And we protect each other. And there's a communal money that is, through the IRS gets our money, but they distribute it in a nice way. Education, healthcare, seniors, kindergartens, but not the Pentagon all the time.
Well, I think it's just not what we would necessarily vote for. I mean, there are lots of different ways that you can talk about distributing the budget, and it's not what we're doing.